Now the meeting is open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for the lessons I'm learning through the study of Christian Science. Over the past year and a half, my husband has been working to resolve a legal problem pertaining to his parents' property. Aside from trying to get the legal issues resolved, he needed to speak to a person who was occupying the property. There was a lot of fear and doubt of just how to approach the situation. I mentioned this to my practitioner, and she reminded me that fear has no place in God's kingdom, and that man is the child of God. I prayed about this with the help of my practitioner, and a short time later, my husband received a call from this individual saying they'd be moving to another state and needed to speak to him about the property. A meeting was arranged, and this individual accepted the terms that were presented. I have so much to be grateful for. During this time, I've learned many valuable lessons. I've learned that my position is to watch, listen, and obey God. This is not always easy, but I have received loving guidance from my practitioner who helps to keep me on the straight and narrow path. I'm learning, too, that no matter what things look like, God is always in control, and He has His will done for me and for everyone. I'm happy to say that a few weeks ago, the legal aspects have been resolved, and my husband can now proceed with the sale of the property. I'm extremely grateful for this. Thank you, Fairley, for the readings tonight. I thank God for this healing service and for this Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. It is an absolute joy for me to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. What a wonderful musical prelude. I thought last week was great, and this one is even as good, or better. Just recently, or about a month ago, I discovered where to find essays and other footprints. So I purchased a copy, and I was reading some of our watches and discovered the Brown book, Mary Baker Eddy's Lessons for the Seventh Day. And so I ordered it, and it arrived today. And I was so thrilled. And I discovered that there are other books of a similar nature that are shown on the back cover. And I will write an article in the newsletter to let people know how they can obtain these. It was so wonderful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you so much for those readings tonight. I live in a watershed area of a major river with various offshoot rivers, so there are lots of footbridges to cross. Last fall, I gave a testimony of overcoming the paralyzing fear of walking across these bridges with the help of my Plainfield practitioner. Last month, my sister and I drove up for the Come to Plainfield weekend. We had agreed that I would drive to Plainfield on Friday afternoon and she would drive us home on Sunday. The GPS had me go on a route directly north through Maryland, then Delaware before arriving in New Jersey. Somewhere in Delaware, I came across the Delaware Memorial Bridge. I could feel my stomach start to knot and my palms start to sweat as they did when I was afraid of crossing those neighborhood bridges. A thought actually came to me that it was okay to be afraid of this particular bridge because it was bigger and that it was not too late to turn around and go home. But I wasn't going to have that, so I swiftly rejected that idea that it could be okay to be afraid. And I remember thinking, a bridge is a bridge is a bridge. And once an error is healed in Christian Science, it is done and there is no going back. I declared to myself that God was my strength and wiped my sweaty hands on my jeans and took my lane to cross that bridge. When I got to the other side, I spoke to that area and I told it to get behind me because we were going to go to Plainfield. We were going to have an absolutely amazing time, which we did. On Sunday after church, I relaxed in the passenger seat as my sister took the wheel. We were barely beyond the outskirts of Plainfield when I began to feel that same kind of dread surrounding the upcoming Memorial Bridge. But as it turns out, the GPS took us on a different route home, and we bypassed the Delaware Memorial Bridge altogether. The new route took us past Philadelphia, and as we were leaving the Philly area, I could see another high bridge looming in the distance. As those uncomfortable feelings trying to worm my way into my thought again, I declared once again that God was my strength and was at the wheel of our car and every other vehicle, so there was absolutely nothing to fear. So as my sister drove across the bridge, I glanced out the window and got not even a ping of fear. I'm so very thankful for Christian Science, this particular independent church, and for the great practitioner help that I continue to receive here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I am so grateful to God for everything I've been given through the study of Christian Science and the healings that have occurred since I have been in the constant and loving care of my practitioner. Nothing but divine love could have brought me out of the darkness I was in before getting the help I so desperately needed. Before Christian Science was introduced into my life, I was suffering deeply from the effects of severe childhood abuse. I had no idea who I was. I could only identify as an angry victim who constantly ruminated, was self-destructive, and suicidal. I was consumed by fear for my own safety in the only world I ever knew, a world filled with evil. I became proficient in the use of alternate personalities to function on my behalf in stressful situations, many times finding myself having to answer to things that I was unaware of doing. I became very good at lying to cover my shame. I had been placed in mental institutions several times and became dependent on prescription drugs for my inspiration and joy, many times going through the motions of eating and sleeping and calling that life. I'm pretty sure I would be there now, or perhaps somehow manage to take my own life if it were not for a close friend who gave me the number of a practitioner from this church. Through the work of my practitioner, I have been healed and no longer suffer from the past. By softening my heart, filling it with truth, teaching me to embrace who I am in Christ, I was able to let go of who I thought I was. I am so grateful for her patience and understanding, and for reaching in through all that mud and pulling me up to where I can experience and understand my true identity in the world of God's creating, free and harmonious. By coming here to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent and persistently desiring truth, God has restored the years the locusts have eaten. I am grateful to our leader, Mary Baker Eddy, for her dedication to God and the gift of her book, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, where she writes on page 207, "There is but one primal cause. Therefore there can be no effect from any other cause, and there can be no reality in aught which does not proceed from this great and only cause. Sin, sickness, disease, and death belong not to the science of being. They are the errors which presuppose the absence of truth, life, or love." I'm also grateful for my practitioner's help and support today when the suggestions were trying to creep in and rob me of my rightful place as a child of God. I am so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candy from Wisconsin, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight, I would like to say how grateful I am for this church. I was brought up in Christian Science, but spent many, many, many years without a church. When I was given Edward Kimball's book, Teaching and Addresses, The ideas that I had been taught finally clicked. Then I was given the Blue Book and realized how very absolute and positive Christian Science actually was. But there still did not seem to be a church that taught and practiced this Christian Science. One day, while perusing the internet, I found Plainfield. They seemed to practice Mary Baker Eddy's Christian Science, but I had to make sure that they were just not a bunch of well-meaning kooks, so I followed them for a year before joining. Since then, this church just keeps getting better and better. Thank you all for standing up to Boston and starting this church. It is a wonderful home. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Colleen from Massachusetts, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for this glorious meeting tonight on the angels of His presence. The angel message came to me this week that I only have to accept the truth about anything. This dawned on me this week when I seemed bombarded by many, many illusions of stressful situations. Inharmonious relationships, physical problems, and even death has confronted me. Feeling overwhelmed, I pray to God humbly and earnestly, seeking some relief and answers. I received an angel message, you only have to accept the truth. This immediately calmed me. I immediately was energized to start facing down these seeming problems one by one, and in my thinking, I reversed each thing, each thought with the truth. God's relationships are all harmonious. God's children are perfect, reflecting the spiritual idea of health. God's idea cannot die. We don't die out of a mortal body, but live wholly separate and apart from the seeming mortal life. I'm no longer overwhelmed, but at peace. One by one, God gives me the spiritual ideas and energy to reject these false claims. As I do this, I feel more energy and more power and more strength. I don't believe in evil anymore like I used to. I know it's not true. I'm so grateful to God and for His angel thoughts that save me from this seeming despair. I'm grateful to God for the angel thoughts that have led me to this church, the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, to whom I am so deeply grateful. My growth in understanding is directly related to what I learn here at this beautiful gathering of God's precious children. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Michael from California? Michael from California, go ahead.
Thank you for the reading tonight. It's really helpful. I just wanted to express my gratitude for all the learnings. But this past Sunday, specifically, I was taking my family out for Mother's Day, and at one point I was trying to help my grandmother out of a car, and as I was reaching over, I felt this pain in my back, and my grandmother uses a walker, and honestly, after I stood up, I felt like I needed the walker maybe more than her, but I tried not to show the pain, let anybody know I was in pain, and I went to, had to have dinner, and the next day I woke up and it hurt to stand or move or anything, and I called my Plainfield practitioner and told her about the problem. She started sharing some ideas with me, and then we changed topic, but after I got off the phone with her, I realized that the pain was almost entirely gone. Some slight pain, but not much. And I just decided that I would be as active as I normally am. So I did move slower throughout the day, but I can honestly say the pain is gone, and I'm healed. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for that. And the following day, I got a call from a friend, and to make a long story short, they're at a new job and they're very fearful, and they asked me if I had anything, as far as anything religious that they could read that maybe could help them. And the thought that came to me was the 91st Psalms with Mrs. Evans' translation or spiritual interpretation that I found one day just browsing the Plainfield website. So I shared that with her. I was a little apprehensive because she doesn't accept Christian Science, but that's the thought that came to me. So I decided to share it with her anyways. And the next day she called me, and she was just raving about how helpful it was. And just makes me realize just the universal application of these ideas, whether you are a card-carrying member of any particular church or denomination or not. And she was just telling me how helpful it was, and she actually told me that she had memorized the 91st Psalms as a child when she was in her native country, and during a civil war when she was a child in this war-torn country. And there were many times where she was trying to take shelter from bullets flying around her with other children. And so she says that this interpretation has so much more meaning and opened up so much more about what she had been reading as a child. So it was it felt very good for me to know that what I'm learning just applies to anything, anywhere, and people get what they need out of it because God will show them what it is that they need to know. So just wanted to express my gratitude for all I've learned in the Plainfield Church, Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, the website, the resources. It's just, I know I've only scratched the surface of it, even though I've been looking at your website now for years. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful for all I am learning here in Plainfield. On page 392 of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, Mary Baker Eddy said, quote, "Stand porter at the door of thought," end quote. Not long after I first arrived, it was made clear that the words we use are a sign of the thoughts we entertain. Because of this, I began to take a close examination of the words I use every day, and I've done my best to eliminate any I feel indicate that I'm thinking wrongly. Words such as chance, lucky, fortunate, and unfortunate were some which I used a lot that really showed my thought and the reason why my life got to such a low point before. Removing these from my speech has truly transformed me to the point where when I hear these words now, I automatically start working to know that there is no chance in God's universe. So instead, I talk about the blessings and opportunities that God is presenting me, since it is never an accident that something comes my way. Rather, these moments are opportunities to demonstrate what I have learned here, and that is always a blessing. I'm very grateful for how the teaching here is showing me to control my thought and words and truly recognize how many blessings and opportunities God imparts every single day. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you. I wish to express gratitude again to all the members of this church for the gracious welcome and loving care which was put into every detail of the Plainfield Sunday on April 22nd. There was so much love and care expressed by all. This is something that is felt by everyone at every meeting or service in this church, whether you're here in person or attending online or on the telephone. I'm very grateful for all the wonderful periodicals that were available and for the various printings which were freely given. There is one that I treasure entitled Hints on Healing by Frank E. Mason, CSD. For there's so much to work with in that writing. I'd like to share just a little. Quote, allow nothing to come between you and God. Jesus recognized nothing between himself and the Father, and he is your model. Think deeply for yourself. Muse on the allness of spirit until it becomes a consciousness of perfection and harmony, which will be manifested openly to the world. Know that you have the supremacy of thought, and that error cannot defy truth, and you will win. End quote. The article directs us to work universally to uplift the whole world, as we learn to do here in the Church Watches. Working with this article has continued to bless me and mine, an added benefit from attending on that glorious Sunday. I'm very grateful for all the instruction, sharing, and working together that is experienced in this independent Christian Science church. Thank you for the beautiful readings on angels, all the testimonies, and the lovely music tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for the beautiful music that played so gently that I can tell the organ was loved, and it just touched hearts. And I wanted to thank Church, Mary Baker Eddy, and our practitioner for helping me. There are times when I have an issue, and after prayer, I still don't know what the problem is. Well, I had my back was starting to side was hurting me, and I thought I had been doing right and thinking right, but something was wrong. I was working with the Spirit of God had made me, and the breath of the Almighty have given me life. God and I are one, and there's no pain in that. And it had improved. But I woke up yet Monday morning, and I was totally stiff and totally couldn't stand on one side. Confounded, I called a practitioner in this church, and the practitioner detected what was wrong. I couldn't. I was uneasy and pressured, or felt about things that I had been working for. And I didn't realize it. I thought everything was fine, but we do need our angels to show us the way to the light. And I was told that man is the humble servant of the restful mind. So I kept working, yes, I want to be humble. What am I trying to take on that I shouldn't be, and not giving it to God? And she gave me also hymn 49, to really just pour your heart to God and ask him to forgive you for wrongs that you've done, even if you didn't realize it, and reveal them to me. And it was that I was taking on and stressing over issues that I should leave in his hands after I've done what he's told me. And before the day was out, I was feeling so much better. And by morning, I was able to walk and move from side to side. And I thank God for revealing to me what the issues were, and to be able to maybe listen to him a little better, or a lot better. This is a great place and great help we have here to be able to be better and do better. Thank God.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you for the readings and the music tonight. I am very grateful to be learning here how to correctly pray for the weather, and also for the many materials that are available on our website to instruct us. Yesterday, our area had severe storm and tornado warnings. I was on the road during rush hour when the clouds darkened and strong winds started. I have some prayers that I turned to on my phone. I wasn't driving, was a passenger. During our trip, we made a stop, and as soon as we got inside the door, there was a heavy downpour. And by the time we were ready to go, the rain had lessened enough that at least there was visibility while driving. And that heavy downpour did not occur again. We were able to get to the airport on time, and the flight was able to take off a couple hours later without delay. During this time, there was an incredible amount of lightning shooting through the sky. Despite the strong storm, the 4 hours we were on the road, we saw no one have any bad effects on this traveling on the road. There was no problems for anybody. We were also blessed with a beautiful double rainbow in the middle of this time, and the sun would occasionally peek out for moments in the most beautiful way. I learned the next day my practitioner had been praying for a couple hours about this storm that afternoon. I'm very grateful, for I know that the protection, the beauty in the midst of it, and being able to keep my thought turning to God despite the stormy picture was a result of her prayers. She told me that the good we saw and experienced was God shining through. As explained by Mary Baker Eddy in Spiritual Footsteps by Gilbert Carpenter in chapter 22, quote, "When I, Mrs. Eddy, take the storm up, I face the clouds and see God's face, love, shining right through. Then the clouds scatter and there's no storm to break upon anyone." End quote. Being on the road for so long during this gave me an opportunity to witness the power of prayer in many ways. This experience was a lesson to me to be more vigilant and pray for the weather, even if I can't see the effects of my prayers. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening, and thank you for the awesome music and Fairley for those healing readings. When I first came to Plainfield, I would sometimes, with working with a practitioner, for whom I am very grateful, would give me a correction that we call a rebuke. And I would, for days, or a day at least, have a sting and think, oh my gosh, I was so terrible. And then a few years or a year or so, then I would get a correction and I'd think, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to do here? And there wasn't such a bad sting. And then yesterday I got a wonderful rebuke and I was happy immediately. And my thinking, I was corrected in my thinking, which was really ingratitude towards something. And I was just so overjoyed with the feeling I had that my thinking was corrected immediately and it didn't come back. Then none of that stuff came back. And I just want to say that rebukes are for our help and to take us closer to God. And it's a wonderful thing to finally understand this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
Okay, I have a few things to read tonight. First, our church website bulletin board, Massachusetts. I'm very grateful to the members of this church who share their inspired ideas on a daily basis. The website and all the services are a continual fountain of good and vitality. Youth, vigor, health, wealth of ideas, strength, and harmony are expressed here. How grateful I am to have found you all. I love to gather with you for our Bible study classes, roundtable meetings, and unity watches to learn, listen, and contribute with a humble heart and feel the all-presence of God. I am grateful for the Bible lessons, testimony meetings, the readers, and the musicians for all services. Your love of the Word of God shines through. Every day is a joy, and I'm always excited to see what unfolds next. Thank you to all who make the Plainfield Christian Science Church independent, a home of love. And then Illinois. As I listen to today's roundtable, I long to know how I declare war on animal magnetism or error. As the roundtable continued, answers to this question were provided. The discussion was uplifting and fortifying. I am grateful to Divine Mind for always providing. I am grateful for each truth that is revealed to me, and I pray for God's continuing help to stay the course until error has no reality in my consciousness. In Costa Rica, I am very grateful for all the material one can access on the Plainfield website, whether readings or articles, etc. I share excerpts and short articles on Facebook. I was a member of a Facebook group called Christian Science, and I shared material from the Plainfield Church, for instance from Martha Wilcox, Bicknell Young, Carpenter, Kratzer, etc. Only good, strong metaphysics, clean without any suggestions of negative feelings between factions or anything like that. It seems that there are students who accept the idea of a new updated science which promotes a mixture of science with medicine. Mrs. Eddy teaches that this is impossible and counterproductive. After a year or so of being a member of this group, all of a sudden I found that I was not a member anymore. I did not receive any more notices. This is very disappointing, of course, as I feel Christian Science students should move on from the past and only work to be a truer image of mind. All this human bickering is part of era's nothingness, which we do not ignore. At the moment, I am in a place of quiet study and knowing meditation and seeking God's face, and our website provides ample inspiration. And then this was found on a YouTube, down at the bottom, the comments that people write. It was posted from one of our roundtable discussions. Thank you for posting and sharing these healing meetings and writings. All my life I've longed for Christian Science with fire. While I sense the truth in Christian Science and even experience personal healing using science and health, my experience in the church was indifferent, cold, and kind of lonely. It made me see such a powerful healing ministry seemingly fade away into empty pews in a huge grand church. In Portland, Oregon, the Christian Science churches are beautiful. I've been listening to your roundtables and Bible studies for close to a year now, and I feel like a de facto member. My grandma, a lifelong Christian Scientist, has also begun to listen and told me she is interested in joining your church. She felt very abandoned by the mother church these past 10 years and really loves that you guys stood up to the BOD. Anyway, I just want to say thank you, and I'm so happy to see your church growing. And then this is a testimony. I had a toothache and jaw pain one night while I was trying to go to sleep. I thought, I can handle this. But as the days and weeks drew on, it grew more and more intense, and it became nearly impossible to live with. My ego of I can handle this fell away, and I called a practitioner. The love radiating from her voice stilled the fear immediately. She had me work with hymn 49, and the last verse so touched me. Drop thy still dews of quietness, till all our strivings cease. Take from us now the strain and stress, and let our ordered lives confess the beauty of thy peace. I stepped out of my way, I dropped the striving to make things happen, and I just let myself feel and know the peace and presence and love of God. Almost immediately I had relief. Within a day or so I was completely healed. I was overjoyed to call my practitioner back and share the healing and thank her for her services. I have gone back to the hymn on a regular basis. Each and every verse has healing in it. I am so grateful for Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, the Plainfield Christian Science Church, and my practitioner. How blessed we all are to receive the cup of cold water in Christ's name. I'm grateful to be here tonight to hear the readings about angels. It's always so comforting to hear everyone's words of gratitude and also the beautiful music. The other day while praying, I had turned to watch his Prayers and Arguments, and it's by Mary Baker Eddy, compiled by Gilbert Carpenter. And in it, he addresses the thought of fear and how to handle fear, and to know that it's just a lie, it's not your thought, and that you think it's your own thinking, but it isn't. And if you can impersonalize it in that way and know it's not your own thinking, you can handle it. I love to know in Mrs. Eddy's home, she had the 3 watches during the day, and the first one in the morning was always to handle fear. And she had students in her home praying and working on that because, of course, she couldn't have any sense of fear in her home. And it's such a wonderful instruction, and I know that I work to do that in the morning too, to know the omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence of God. Nothing but His power, and if there's nothing but His power, there is nothing ever to fear, and we can conquer it in that way. I'm so grateful for Mary Baker Eddy for all the wonderful writings she's given us, certainly for Science and Health, for our Wednesday night meetings, our Sunday services, and all the times we gather here together to encourage ourselves in the Lord. Thank you all.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful for the readings about being in God's presence, in the presence of His angels. I have learned so much about being quiet and just feeling God's presence. And I know that at times when it is pain, we sort of get taken by it. But I'll read what Mrs. Eddy says here, which is so comforting. She says on page 366 of Science and Health that the sick are terrified by their sick beliefs, and sinners should be affrighted by their sinful beliefs. But the Christian scientist will be calm in the presence of both sin and disease, knowing as he does that life is God and God is all. Thanks to everyone for their testimonies, fairly for the beautiful, powerful readings. I'm just happy to be here tonight.
Thank you.